And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Meeples and Monsters. Now, I gotta say, folks, I was pretty pumped about this game because this game is a bag building game, and what I mean is you have a bag and you're throwing meeples in that bag, but you're going to be adding more of them. Then you go out and fight monsters, and you can upgrade the powers of them. That's all stuff I really think is cool, and I like a lot of stuff that AEG does. And Ole Steinitz is a designer that I'm a big fan of. I've liked many of his other games. So this one was kind of a win for me, other than I don't like the name. Meeples and Monsters is kind of a, you know, it feels like this whole, we get it, we're gamers, we're sticking the word meeple and everything. Here we have actual meeples fighting monsters. Great. Anyway, just as a note, I am taking a look at the edition I'm looking at here is the Kickstarter edition, although I'm not going to cover. It comes with towers and a whole solitaire mode, which I'm not going to go into. But I will show you how the base game is played. Let's do it. Each person is going to get their own inn. So this is the Douglas Fir Inn, this is the green player, that has a tavern section and lodgings, and also shows you the level 1. There's a level 1 peasant, a warrior, a knight, a clerk, and a mage. You're going to get a bag, and in that bag, you're going to start with a bunch of these little wooden meeple pieces, and you're going to start with these gray ones. Those are just corruption. They're actually not people. They just feel like people when you pull them out of the bag. And 7 peasants. And to start the game, you're going to pull 4 of these from the bag and put them in your tavern. Now, gray corruption just basically is something you can't use on a turn. So you don't really want those in your bag. But the rest you're going to be used to be placing onto the main board. On a player's turn, the first thing they're going to do is the development phase. There are 3 things you can do in the development phase. You can place 2 of your peasants to build a building, or you can just place 1 of them, which will give you another peasant that you're going to be throwing into your bag and build a building. So you're like, why would you not do this one? It's cheaper, but this dilutes your bag and you'll have more of these peasants in the bag, which are your weakest and lowliest force. Also, if you have a yellow, blue, black, or red, the mage, cleric, knight, and warrior in that you've pulled from your bag, you can place 1 of those here, and you're going to pay monsters that you've collected, points-wise worth, you're going to pay points that you've gotten from collecting monsters to level them up. You can go to level 2 or level 3 for each of them. When you do that, you're simply going to take a level 2 card and place it here, and then when you're done, you'll flip it over to be level 3. This will give them possibly special abilities and maybe raise their attributes. So you'll notice the mage stays at level 1 fighting, but the warrior over here, when you level them to level 2, they go up to a level 2 fighting, and then at level 2 fighting with a special ability when they're leveled up to level 3. If you take this first action here where you build a building, there are 4 buildings on different areas of the board, and you're going to place it on top of one of these spots, and that's going to be a building that people can now use. But whenever you place it on top of a spot, you will get whatever's there. So for example, if I put it here in this district, I'm going to get a red cleric. If I go over here, I'll get a yellow. If I go here, I'll draw 2 quest cards and discard 1 of those quest cards. So you're going to get whatever that's underneath it, and you'll notice there's also only room for 8 of these buildings over the course of the game. After that development phase, you then have the main phase, and this is where you can place other people that you've pulled from your bag on different spots on the board, depending on the colors that you pulled. So for example, I could put 2 people here at the cathedral. I'm going to lose 1 of them to get a red cleric that's going to be thrown into my bag. Here I could pay 3 people. 1 of them has to be a peasant to get a blue warrior. Here I'll pay a warrior and a peasant to get a knight. So those are spots, and those are the only 4 spots at the beginning of the game. But once these buildings start getting built, here I can put a red and a yellow, who I'll lose, to get a new class hero. We have the shamans, and some cards will give you the rangers, and some cards will give you the amazing and terrific paladins. These all come in starting at their full level as it is, but they're really useful and have cool special abilities. All of these characters, when you build them, you'll notice there are limited amounts, especially of these special class people. The rest you probably won't run out of. Another thing that you can do is you can go to fight monsters. And so each section of the board has monsters. And this matters because if you use a building in a section of the board where there's a lot of monsters, you're going to get extra peasants who are running from those monsters thrown into your bag. Again, diluting your bag. But when you fight a monster, you're going to need a certain number of strength to fight that monster. So you can see this Timber Wolf, which is a level 2 monster. The game wouldn't start with a level 2 monster out, but I just want to show you one. This one requires 7 strength. This one requires 3. To do that, you're going to need to put people on them. So I can beat up this termite here with 3 peasants. But if I have like a level 3 warrior, I only need 1 of those and a peasant because the level 3 warrior brings in 2. And so there's all sorts of things that you can do to upgrade your people and have special attack powers that you will place to beat up these monsters. And this is important because beating up monsters will let you do quests, give you victory points, and sometimes give you a special ability. For example, if you defeat this evil puppet master here, you'll see they give +1 strength to your warriors. You'll take this card and you'll tuck it under the board like this, so this reminds you that your warriors are +1. If, for example, in my hand it says if in your tavern you draw 2 yellows, I draw 2 mages. When that happens, during the main phase I can kill one of them to give all my other mages +2 strength. And I would also, again, stick that here so I remember that I have that special ability. And these can stack as you go through the game, so your people will get stronger. Now you're doing this because as the game goes by, you're going to be, whenever there's less than 6 monsters on the board, you'll draw monsters, put more monsters on the board. You're going through a deck where the monsters get more powerful as you go through it. And in certain points in the deck, randomly inserted are the Dark Council arrives, in which players will be throwing more corruption in their bag. But at the very end, when the 3rd Dark Council arrives, that's going to trigger the end of the game. And at that point, you can start attacking these 4 big mega monsters that are next to the board. Each will give you victory points at the end, and then they have another tile randomly assigned to them to give you more. So these can give you a lot of victory points at the end of the game. Once the whole game has gone through and the last phase is done, you're simply going to add victory points that you've gotten. Some of your bonus cards will have given you victory points for the end of the game, and whoever has most points is the winner. The components for this game are a mixed bag. Well, on the good side, no irony intended here, the bags are great. Look at this. I have a huge gorilla hand and I can still stick it in there and grab these. The little meeples themselves, I don't know how much I'm loving the whole meeple motif, like the whole game meeples, our meeple, I don't get that. These are pretty good. They screen printed them on one side, which sometimes makes it hard to tell what color they are if you're just looking at them from the top. And it's also only on one side. That's fine, I don't mind that. The board is a little cluttered. I will say the symbology in the game is often a little confusing. We're never quite sure, and the rule book is not particularly well done. I had to look up a lot of things, or things were kind of obscured. It took me a long time to figure out what level monsters were until it's like, oh, it's these 2 things here. It's mentioned in the rule book, but in a very minor place. And there's these symbols on the back here. But the rule book I found to be not particularly easy to get through. And there's also some clunkiness as to the phases. There's this development phase and then placing workers out phase. So the art is fine. I like the idea, here when you use your people when you're done, they go into lodgings and then you pull more people from your bag and then you keep moving people over to lodgings. When your bag runs out, you throw them in. That's nice and clean. The artwork is a little goofy, scary, cutie type thing. But overall, I think the production is fine. AEG does a good production. There's just some things, particularly the rule book, that I think could have been done better. So in essence, this is both a bag building game or a pool building game. You're throwing these meeples in a bag. And it's a worker placement game. Here's the problem. I don't think it actually succeeds as either of those. When you pull the people from the bag, it's random. I get that. So you're trying to put people in the bag, but you're constantly throwing more white peasants in the bag. Your bag feels diluted the whole game. To actually pull a combo of colors to do something neat, that might happen, but even though these bag building games, this sort of thing happens, it feels random, and there's a lot of turns where I was like, meh. And like I said, that clunkiness of there's a development phase first, and then there's placing workers, and I can't tell you how many times people were mixing the two of them. Oh, I'm going to do this and go to this building. I'm like, no, hang on, you got to do the development phase first. So that part felt a little clunkier than I would like it to be. The other problem is that there are those 8 buildings that you can be built over the course of the game. Do you know when they're built? Like right away. Why would you not build a building? And so once those 4 buildings are out, there's not a lot of places to go to. There's not a lot of things to do. You go out here and go, I guess I'll go to this building. I mean, you can always go out and fight monsters, which is kind of cool, but it just didn't feel like there was a lot of divergent things. There wasn't a lot of cool things to do. And you want to level up your people, but that means you need to buy them, get them into the bag, pull them from the bag, spend time leveling them up, using their meeple to level them up, get them back in the bag, then pull them out and you can use it. And that's a little bit of a lengthy period of time. And during that time, during the first chunk of this game, it's not really interesting. I got a yellow on my turn. I got a red. And the turns aren't super fast either. So it just feels like it has a bit of a slow going. And even at its end, the development phase is pretty boring at the end. Would you like to build a building? You can't. You can't build a building because there's already buildings they're already all built. I just was not as excited about that. The thing I do like is leveling stuff up. That's fun. Although once you level, things up and or get those, the cool paladins and stuff, that's having those next to your board, that's really cool. But even that, the whole game has this strong, it just doesn't feel like a streamlined, smooth game that gives you a lot of cool options. It felt like you had a few options, and it just felt like you were kind of creaky in a suit of armor that doesn't fit properly, going through and fighting monsters. And then the little things, the cards that you draw, there's not a ton of ways to draw those cards. There's a couple spots on the board that let you draw cards. But for the most part, sometimes you get a card, you're like, oh, this is easy. I can do this in an instant. Sometimes you don't. And if someone gets those cards that they can do quickly, they have a leg up on everybody else. I just felt like this game feels like it's kind of in beta. It doesn't feel like it's completely there. And I'm not sure that it's going to be a game that I want to play over and over again. I like the concept of it. I like the idea of throwing stuff in. I like the concept of the game. The thematic stuff still drives me nuts, this whole Meeples and Monsters. It's too much of an in-joke. Like, if I wanted to teach you some people who like, hey, we're playing Meeples and Monsters, what's a Meeple? Oh, a Meeple is a wooden person who represents a person. So why is the Meeple giant and fighting a monster? I don't really know. Okay, but if you get past that, that's not that big of a deal, right? You're like, oh, fighting the monsters and stuff, and then new monsters come out, and a monster comes out, and I have a lot of attack strength, but the monster itself, they upgrade a unit that I don't have a lot of. It just felt unfocused through a lot of the game. And I kept going through and going, I want to like this. I want to like these ideas. This seems so interesting, but it never really gels into that smooth game that, like it's not Champions of Midgard, which also has a lot of the similar stuff from the same designer. And that felt more streamlined than this one does. This one, the combat isn't exciting either. You have it or you don't. The upgrades are cool. That's my favorite part. I wish the game kind of concentrated on that. But again, the not great rule book is also hindering from that a bit. So I had to look up many things online on FAQs and stuff. I was not... All this is just like these little needling things that doesn't make this as good as I want it to be. I want this to be an amazing game that I play. As is, I don't dislike it. It's fine when I play it. But it keeps me from being the one to say, let's pull this out and play it again. So that's Meeples and Monsters. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see you next time on the Dice Tower. Dice Tower Judgment, fun, but seems unrefined.